Good morning, everyone. Boker Tov, Shalom. My name is Sergio, and I come from Portugal. Today, I'm here to talk to you about how you can improve your quality through test automation. I've been the product manager of Xray for the last 2.5 years. Now I'm currently the solution architect, helping teams worldwide. Before we actually dive into test automation, I want to speak about chimps and DNA. Do you know that we share about 90% of our DNA with chimps? It's amazing. Effectively, we evolved from the same common ancestor dated like 6 million years ago, but we evolved in several and quite different ways. We are way better than chimps. Actually, you can use Jira. Chimps not yet. But actually, does that mean that we are smarter and better than chimps doing all sorts of tasks? So I would invite you to watch this small video, and then we can discuss a bit about it later on.
The scientists at Japan's Primate Research Institute, the PRI, where Ayumu is based, have devised intelligence tests for chimps. One test is for what's called working memory, the brain's ability to temporarily store and use information. The numbers 1 to 9 are randomly scattered across a touchscreen. The chimp looks at them for as long as is needed to memorize the layout. Then, as soon as one is touched, the other numbers are hidden and must now be remembered. We volunteered Chris, the director of this program, to demonstrate this test. He's a college graduate and a crossword addict, but how good is his working memory? When Chris reckons he has memorized the layout, he touches 1. When the others are hidden, he must try to recall 2 to 9 in ascending order.
It takes me ages to remember where they're all placed, and then I think I've got it. It's really very, very difficult.
In 30 attempts, Chris only once reached 9 without making a mistake.
As soon as they're blanked over, it's like my mind's been blanked over as well.
When Ayumu sat the same test, he correctly remembered the numbers almost 90% of the time.
Ayumu gets it right almost every time, and I've got it right once.
Chris fears he's let his species down. But even when the PRI played Ayumu against their best human students who were given regular practice sessions, Ayumu still beat all humans.
Amazing, isn't it? Actually, we all heard about machine testing in the past. This means that really the chimp testing is the future. Are humans really tailored to do those kinds of repetitive tasks? Actually, we are not. We can do actually greater things than doing those kinds of tasks that are so common, for example, whenever we do automated tests. So let's deep dive actually on the reasons for testing, first of all. So, first of all, why do we need testing? Well, we need testing because we want to make releases happen at any moment in time. We want them to happen tomorrow, today, or at this moment. And in order to achieve that, we need to ensure that we don't have any regressions going on. And we also need to ensure that our products, they do work in the same or across all the different environments that our product must be working with. And we need to do this having a certain amount of limited resources, so we don't have like infinite resources for doing testing. So how can we actually achieve this kind of release freedom with limited resources. We still need to validate the things that we develop. And another thing is that we need to perform all sorts of testing at different levels. We need to perform functional testing, non-functional testing, performance testing, security testing, unit testing. So there are many types of tests going on, and we need to do all of them. But we are limited in resources. But first of all, what is testing all about? Well, many of you, or some of you, may think that testing is just about finding bugs. And that's actually a bit limited in the sense that testing is way more. It's about, first of all, preventing bugs. And it's also about providing feedback to the product team in order for them to make a really quality product. Another thing about testing, before I go into the next slide, is that testing is not something that really happens just at the final stage of your development. It's something that we have to think throughout all of your development life cycle. So, okay, we know that tests, we need to perform testing, but what kind of tests should we do? What kind of strategies can we implement in order to do the right tests? So I'll be talking about ice creams and cupcakes. It's not really food, but it's different testing approaches. So most of you for sure know this typical test pyramid from my cons. It basically provides you an idea of the effort that you should spend in your testing. You should spend more of your effort doing unit tests, automated unit tests. And then on top of it, you should complement with the integration tests. And then in the end, you should have end-to-end tests. All of them, they actually give you value. It's just a matter of whether of the amount of effort that you spend in each one of these layers. And Google recently, more or less, actually specified that their team spends about these percentages in this testing pyramid. About 70% in unit tests, and about 20% on top of it doing integration tests, and then 10% doing more UI tests. Of course, testing is not just about automated testing. Actually, in this more complete, I would say, testing pyramid from Lister Scott, what you have actually is this pyramid composed of unit tests, then followed by component tests, integration tests, service tests, and then some end-to-end tests. And, well, most of the pyramid is actually automated, but in the end, you have also manual testing going on, especially exploratory testing, which can give you a different kind of value based on human knowledge that no really machine can give currently. However, whenever you go to organizations, and this happens everywhere, you actually see different patterns or anti-patterns in this case. Organizations adopt testing in a completely different way from the ideal pyramid. For example, you have this ice cream-like pyramid, which is sometimes called the inverted pyramid, because people spend most of the time actually doing manual testing, manual end-to-end testing, and for example, they have almost no unit tests at all. But in other organizations, you have, let's say, 3 different teams going on. You may have, let's say, the developers, you may have the traditional manual testing team, and then you have the automation team doing end-to-end tests. And the problem here is that actually these teams, they don't work together. And everyone is doing their own testing. Eventually you get, like, let's say, duplicated tests. And this is really not efficient. Another anti-pattern, and this is also common, is that whenever you have, let's say, the developers, they really like to write some automated tests as code. They do plenty of them as unit tests. And then someone says, okay, great, let's do some end-to-end tests just to cover everything. And they forget about the middle layers. And the middle layers are also important if you wish to perform root cause analysis. But why do these patterns arise? Well, it's mostly due to these three reasons. It's organizational, due to organizational constraints, also human reasons, and also historical reasons. Organizational because, well, you have your organization that has like a separate team just for testing, different kinds of team, and well, each team needs to prove its work, and actually they are not working together. Also, from a more human perspective, you know, every one of us is a bit resistant to change. And no one really wants to change the way it is normally used to work. So if a person is used to do manual end-to-end testing, it will keep going like that. If a person is used to work with some special tool, they prefer to use that too, because they are used to it. And they don't really question things. In a more agile approach, and this is more recent, is from Brian Merrick and Lisa Crispin. Basically, the agile test quadrants provide you, let's say, a level overview of all the types of testing that you can have. And basically, it splits all those tests in, let's say, in quadrants. And the idea is that these quadrants, depending on the quadrant that you are looking at, some of these tests may be automated or not. Some of them may be done using tools. And also, one thing that is relevant for the purpose of the quadrants is, of course, that the quadrants are made according with one criteria, is that the two top quadrants that you have there, they are more concerned with the business, while the two lower quadrants, they are more concerned with the technology. For example, in the first quadrant, here on the left lower side, you have, for example, the unit tests. The two quadrants on the left side, they are more oriented to guide the development, to guide the product team. While the two on the right side, they are more relevant as means to provide, let's say, more critical feedback by means, for example, of exploratory testing and all the, let's say, the performance testing and security testing, so on. The quadrants, although they, you can see them, they're numbered, actually the idea is that you don't pick tests from quadrant 1 and then quadrant 2, so on and so forth. The idea is that you assess what the risks are at every moment, and you choose the tests that are more, make more sense at any moment in time in order to mitigate the risks that you may have. Okay? So this is a way for you to have like a whole map of your testing that you can do, and depending on the risks that you want to mitigate at any moment, that you discover along with all the team that makes part of your product, you choose the right tests at every single day. Okay, I was talking a bit about Agile, and of course, whenever we talk about Agile, then this buzzword Agile testing comes around. But what is Agile, first of all? For me, Agile is about building great products, okay? I know that this can be quite simple, and in fact it's simple. But in order to make great products, we can only achieve those with great efficiency and get collaboration between all the team members, and by having a common understanding of the things that we are really developing. The feedback that comes from all team members, it's important. No matter if it's a tester, a developer, a designer, all of that is important. And we should not have barriers in the team in order to block, let's say, the feedback from all those people that are working for the same product. And then, of course, being Agile is about embracing change. Embracing change that can either come from, let's say, from the customer side, but also from the team side. So if the team decides that they are not really working the best way, well, they should adapt in order to be more efficient. I have this quote that I saw in scrum.org that speaks a bit about what is Agile testing. The rationale for testing is very different in an agile or lean way of working. In agile practice, testing is not done in order to find defects, but in order to prevent them. The idea is to minimize rework and waste. And this is totally true. So the mindset is different. It's not just about finding bugs, first of all. It's about having a great quality product while being efficient at the same time. This testing manifesto, depicted by Karen Greaves and Samantha Lang, basically provides here some basic principles. The idea is that you not, for example, test at the end. You test throughout your development life cycle. The idea is that you try to avoid bugs, not to try to find them, because you are really aiming to have a better product that you can only have if you have like a clear understanding. And another thing that for me, I think it's really crucial, is that quality is not just about something that only testers should be concerned. It's more like a team responsibility. Everyone should be involved in all quality aspects. So whenever we are talking about agile testing, we need to have these principles in mind. And having these principles in mind, what kind of test should we do? Agile testing doesn't really dictate that you should do this test or that test. It tells you that you should do whatever is best for you at every moment. And for that, it means that you can follow different kinds of approaches, more manual-based, or more automated base. First of all, you can do, of course, exploratory testing because it provides more critical feedback, because a human can look at things. It doesn't need to go through, let's say, a script of checks. It can look at things and it can think on things that no one has thought about them before. But if we need to be agile, of course we need to have automated checks going on in order to validate if the software is doing what it's supposed to do. And these automated checks, they can be used to do all sorts of tests at the different levels of that pyramid. And it does not matter what kind of technologies you choose for implementing those tests, because you choose the technologies that are most suitable to your team. If the team is more proficient doing testing using, let's say, Java, Ruby, Python, well, choose whatever kind of framework you want, as long as you're efficient. And the tool for example, a test management tool shouldn't really limit you in the kinds of technologies that you choose for implementing the automated tests. So you see that there is really a mapping between agile testing and that ideal test pyramid. Of course, if we look at agile testing, the more automated part, all those checks that we can perform by using automated tests, they are essential for enabling CI and CD practices. And of course, they are essential in order to avoid regressions. So we cannot really be agile if we are unable to make a release happen. And in order to make a release happen as soon as possible, we have to make sure that we don't have regressions. And the only way to ensure that very fast is by having automated tests, implemented using whatever kind of technologies we want. So in that sense, test automation really enables agile testing. It's not everything about agile testing. It's an important part of it, because it can enable also CI and CD. It can provide you more test coverage, and it can also give you, let's say, instant feedback to the team. Whenever someone commits some code that breaks some feature that was supposed to work, you will see that feedback instantaneously on the related user story. So you really want to decrease the amount of regressions that you are having, while at the same time reduce the amount of time that it takes to run the tests, and also reduce the costs. Well, there are all types of costs, but whenever I'm thinking about test automation, have in mind that bug fixing, the cost of bug fixing something actually depends on let's say, two major things. The time that the bug was actually added to your software. So it could be, let's say, even in the requirement specification or during the first lines of code. So if it happens, if you add the bugs soon in your development life cycle, it will have great impact to fix that bug. On the other hand, if you only discover the bug later on, then it will be also more costly for you to fix the bug. And the only way to avoid this high level of bug fixing costs is by having and testing as soon as possible. And in that sense, as people now nowadays they say, shift your testing to the left side. Basically, I'm not saying that do all testing in the left side of your development life cycle, but do it as soon as possible. So the question arises, agile testing. Do you think tools can help you? Are tools really mandatory? Well, tools can help you at certain, I would say, at certain levels. They can provide you the means to have an ongoing communication between all the stakeholders. No matter if it's a tester or a developer, everyone should be able to comment and to provide feedback on all the artifacts that are being developed by your team. So we should not really have, let's say, tests that are just for testers and user stories just for developers. Well, a person can go into the product backlog item and comment on it and ask for more additional clarification. And the idea is that to actually make testing and programming, merge them together and make part them of what we call development. It's not really a different stage. It's something that makes part of development. It does not make sense to develop something if you don't do testing. Of course, a tool can provide you efficiency. How? It can, for example, do some tasks that you normally have to do. For example, if you have a manager that really wants some kind of report, well, let's not discuss if those reports are really useful, but if you need to generate those reports, well, you can automate those. So you can spend most of your time where you can bring value. Another thing is that you want to have, let's say, a great visibility of what is happening. You don't really want to ask people, how is that user story going on? How are those tests going on? You want that feedback to be instantaneous. You are looking at the user story or at a requirement. You want to see how it is in this moment. And as teams adapt, your agile-like tool should also adapt to your needs, of the needs of your team. So, in testing, you want to really evaluate progress. How is my user story going on? Is it ready to be deployed? Is it working fine in this environment? Are the tests passing in that environment? You want also, of course, to assign work to some person. You want to bring people together. And of course, if you do have, let's say, bugs going on, if you have defects, you want to trace those. You want to see on the requirements what defects are impacting on those requirements. So I do think that you can improve your testing by using, first of all, Jira, and then add Xray on top of it, because they provide you the foundations for this. It's just one place where you can have all your team members working the same tool, using the same kind of concepts. You can search things easily. You can collaborate on the issues easily. You can take advantage of workflows if you want to have like a more strict process. So I do really think that it fosters collaboration by having all in the same tool. And the thing is that it can also adapt to your own methodology. So if you are adopting waterfall, Scrum, or some agile flavor, you can adapt Jira and Xray to your own internal process. So, moving forward. And the thing is that if you are doing automation, the tool, in this case Xray, actually leverage automation because you can, for example, specify cucumber-based scenarios in natural language. We call it sometimes executable specification because it's something that you can actually execute as code. So you can specify your examples in natural language and therefore adopt BDD directly into the tool. And you can use Xray to have, let's say, all your testing results that come either from manual or automated testing. So it can be used as the single source of truth. And this is really important. You don't have like automated testing in one side, in Bamboo, Jenkins, or whatever, and then you have, let's say, manual testing in another tool. You have it in all in one place. And you can use this in order to quickly assess how the tests or the requirements are for a given version or for a given environment, okay? So, yeah, so it does not matter what kind of frameworks you use for test automation. In the end, you want to have quick visibility over automated test results and instant results. So let's have a look at a quick demo that I'll try to do live. Let's see if I can share my screen here. Okay. So first of all, whenever you're looking at a release, from the release perspective, you want to see how your release is. You want to see how the features are. And what you can see, for example, in this simple report is all the user stories, all the epics that you have, and you are analyzing them, taking into account the executions that you perform against some version of the system. Okay? So it will show how the user stories are, taking into account the execution of the test that you performed against version 3 in this case. So here I can quickly see that, for example, I have one story assigned to the UI component, because in this case I'm grouping my stories by component. That is not okay. That is not okay because some of the tests are failing. In this case, all the tests are failing. Likewise, you can see that there are 6 user stories assigned to the core component that are 100% complete because all the tests are passing in version 3. So by looking at this simple report, you can have like a clear overview of the status of your release. If you see it all green, then you're ready to ship it. If you see some parts of it are red, then you know that some tests that would validate that requirements are not okay. And you can also evaluate let's say, the user stories that are not being covered. From a traceability perspective, you can analyze your requirements, no matter if it's user stories, epics. You can analyze them for a given version and see, okay, these requirements for version 3, which is the version where I'm analyzing them on, in that specific environment, they are okay because this user story is okay because all the tests are passing, because the latest run that I have made for each one of them was pass. And if I had a run where the test failed, I can see it here, and I can also track the link of defects. But I was talking earlier about clear visibility of things and having efficiency. And having efficiency is actually looking at this coverage information and the test results right at the place that you are working. So if you're working in the user story screen, you can quickly assess the status of a coverage that also gives information about the test results right from that screen. And you can also evaluate here the latest results of your tests that do cover this user story. So for example, this case, this user story is also covered by a cucumber-based test, which is that executable specification that I mentioned. But this presentation is about test automation, so let's try to show something. I'm not going to show Bamboo, I could show Bamboo, but for this purpose, well, since Jenkins is free, most of you can possibly also try it out. So what I have here is a Java, small Java project using JUnit. And if you have already some automated tests implemented, so this is a Maven-based project, I will compile my classes, run the test, and in the end, there's a step where I actually submit the results back to Xray, assign those results back to a project. I say that this execution was performed against a certain build number for this specific version of the product. So if I run this, if I come here, I will have a new test execution, which represents like a task for running my tests. You can see my 4 automated tests. So let's look at one of these. So automated tests can be automatically provisioned the first time that you import the results. And if you do import results multiple times, they will be reported against the existing entities. So if you have here, for example, some assertion message on the test case, you can also evaluate from the execution screen. And as I've said, if the automated test is being reflected is linked to a user story, you can assess the coverage here. In this case, the user story is not okay because some of the tests are failing, which is not the case of this automated test. But I mentioned that you want efficiency. So if you are adopting Scrum and if you have this kind of boards, you can actually track the feedback that comes from testing right in your existing card. So if you are looking at the user story card, you can embed there and add, for example, a requirement status field that shows the coverage situation for your requirement. And this way, everyone that is working the scope of the sprint can have like a clear understanding of what is happening. If the story, let's say, is actually done, someone moved it to this column, but you can see that it's actually not done because some tests are failing for it in version 3. And if you want to bring, let's say, your testing related activities, like the plan and all those iterations that you make from a plan, all those tasks for running a bunch of test cases, you can also bring them to the board and include information about their progress here. And this way, everyone can have like a clear understanding of quality and work on improving quality right from the board, and also right from the start. So, to close this up, Expand IT is the company behind Xray and Exporter, which are our 2 major products. Xray is the tool that I've shown you that works inside Jira. It lives inside Jira. There's not anything else that you don't need to install it. Anything else, it works seamlessly inside Jira. And you have Exporter, which is an app for Jira that allows you to export information from Jira issues to fully customize, let's say, Word documents, PDF, or Excel based on some templates that you build out. So sometimes you may want to generate a report, even of your testing, but sometimes of your release, of some tickets that you may have, for example, in Service Desk, according with some layout. So you build a template with that layout, and the exporter will automatically generate that report for you. And even better, you can automate the generation of these reports, for example, based on a workflow, for example, as a post function, or if you want, as a periodic basis, you can generate those reports. We already have, I would say, a ton of Israeli customers. These are just a few of them. There are many that out there. These are just some references. Of course, we have, besides Israeli customers, we have about 4,000 customers worldwide. We have many of the Fortune 500 companies, including Tesla, BMW, many companies from high-tech and also from sports, banking, you name it. We exist, the product Xray exists for more than 4 years. It's being used worldwide. It's the #1 test management solution for Jira. And just to finish, then, do you remember what we were aiming to overcome first of all? We wanted to overcome release freedom. That's what we really want. We want to have release freedom. And in order to have that, we can only have that if we do have agile testing, and as part of agile testing, also test automation going on. Because we need to make sure that we are able to make frequent releases that are validated against multiple target environments, and also by using less and more or less resources. So in the end, humans still have an opportunity. We are not really tailored for doing those kinds of repetitive tasks as chimps can. Chimps are better than us for doing that. So if we need to do all those kinds of tasks where we validate many things, and we really need to be efficient on that, of course you can hire like 1,000 chimps, but you'll spend lots of money on bananas. So in the end, I think we can beat chimps today if you do automate and use Xray. Thank you. Another thing I want to show you. So as part of before I pass to the next speaker, just to show you what we have been working on. So we have an R&D department doing some quite nice stuff. And what we'll be releasing on the next month will be an application for Xray, for mobile, for Android, and for iOS. So let me try to just show you it very quickly. Oh, you see my beautiful face. Let's see if no one calls me in between. So the idea is that managers, of course, they want to see how things are going on. So you can connect your Xray free application to your Xray instance and, for example, analyze what are the status of your requirements. So, for example, 91% are OK on version 3.3. You can drill down and then eventually deep dive on it. You can also eventually see the traceability report from here. For example, in this case, this bug is also covered with test cases, because that's one thing that we actually do. We treat bugs in the same way as we treat, for example, features. We cover them with test cases, and we run test cases in order to make sure that those bugs are fixed. I can now see the runs from here. And eventually, if I want, I can also track the plans. So all the planning that I make, for example, for a given release, I can also see it from here. And if I'm a tester on the road, and I want to see all the runs that are assigned to myself, I can actually see them from here, and then actually execute the steps of my test case from here. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you. Toda.